it was really refreshing because given that I didn't know a lot about him, everything that I've learned about him, I learned through him, as opposed to having grown up around different news stories or tabloids or whatever else. Anything I learned about him and his family was what he would share with me, and vice versa. So for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other.
We've seen celebrity scandals explode in real time before, but what's happening right now with Meghan Markle and Joe Rogan isn't just another tabloid flare-up. It's a full-blown reputational wildfire, and the flames are spreading faster than her PR team can contain them. Because here's the thing about Joe Rogan. When the most influential podcaster on earth decides to dig into your past, there's no spinning your way out. No carefully worded statements, no strategic Instagram posts, no high-powered lawyers threatening lawsuits. There's just 200 million listeners hearing questions they've never heard asked before. And suddenly, the carefully curated image of Meghan Markle, the self-made duchess, the empowerment icon, the woman who left royalty to build her own empire, starts looking like something else entirely. Something calculated, something hidden, something that connects her to one of the darkest scandals in modern royal history.
I don't think so, because William's a bit like me. He doesn't actually view Harry as a victim. He doesn't. He views Harry as someone who has been a complicit part in an attempt to bring down the British royal family, and so that doesn't make him a victim. Like, he might be a victim of Meghan, but he's not a victim in terms of his behavior.
Let's start with the detonation. It wasn't some obscure blog or a fringe conspiracy theorist who reignited the yacht girl rumors. It was Joe Rogan, a man whose platform is so massive that when he speaks, the entire cultural conversation shifts. And what did he do? He didn't just mention the rumors. He didn't just repeat what's been whispered for years. He connected the dots in a way that made it impossible to ignore. Prince Andrew, Epstein's circles, the elite yacht parties where powerful men and ambitious women mixed under very specific, very discreet arrangements. And then he dropped the name that ties it all together, Marcus Anderson, the man who introduced Meghan to Harry, the man who, according to researchers like Kirby Summers, has been facilitating her access to these elite circles for over 2 decades. The man who, conveniently, seems to have vanished from her inner circle just as these questions resurface. We're not talking about vague gossip anymore. We're talking about a direct line from Meghan's past to one of the most explosive scandals of our time. And Joe Rogan just put it on blast for his entire audience. Now, why does this matter now? Because Meghan's entire post-royal identity is built on control. Control of her narrative, control of her image, control of who gets to ask questions and who doesn't.
Yeah, it says so much about her ambitions and her self-perception. You know, it's bizarre. Harper's bizarre. Yeah.
It certainly is. I mean, some of the claims that she made, how brave she was, being, selling jams, being a working mum. It's painful to read.
She spent years crafting this story of herself as the empowered woman who walked away from the monarchy to build her own brand, Netflix deals, lifestyle products, a podcast about female entrepreneurship. But what happens when the biggest podcast in the world starts asking questions about the foundation of that story? What happens when Joe Rogan, a man who doesn't care about royal protocols or Hollywood PR strategies, starts suggesting that maybe Meghan's fairy tale romance with Harry wasn't so fairy tale after all? That maybe it was the culmination of years of strategic networking in circles most people wouldn't dare acknowledge? That's not just a scandal. That's an existential threat to everything she's built. And let's be clear, this isn't the first time Joe's gone after Meghan. He's been skeptical of her for years. Back in 2020, he mocked her complaints about being objectified on Deal or No Deal, saying, "Did you think it was an executive position, ma'am?" Then there was the time he called her a little American hussy while doing an impression of the Queen, predicting she'd just end up endorsing makeup lines and sneakers. Which, by the way, is exactly what happened. So when Joe starts talking about yacht parties and Prince Andrew, people listen. Because he's been right before. And this time, the stakes are even higher.
And if I were, if I were a troublemaker, I might accuse Harry and Meghan of unconscious bias in the employment department, looking at all the new faces that are coming on to work for Harry and Meghan independently and together for their entertainment ventures. And if history repeats itself as much as Harry whines that it does, both Harry and Meghan will continue to reject any and all sound advice and will potentially treat their staff poorly, so good luck.
Here's where it gets even more explosive. The yacht girl rumors aren't new. They've been floating around for years, dismissed by mainstream media as baseless gossip. But Joe Rogan isn't mainstream media. He's not bound by the same rules, the same fears of defamation, the same need to stay in the good graces of powerful people. When he asks why Meghan was invited to Yacht Week 2016, an event so notorious GQ called it Sodom and Gomorrah at sea, people start wondering. When he asks about her connection to Marcus Anderson, the man who introduced her to Harry and who, according to Summers, has been connecting her to elite circles since at least 2001, people start connecting dots. And when he suggests that maybe, just maybe, Meghan's relationship with Harry wasn't some romantic accident, but the result of years of careful networking in the highest echelons of power, people start questioning everything they thought they knew about her. Now, let's talk about the photos. Kirby Summers claims there are photos of Meghan on a yacht in Phuket, Thailand, with Prince Andrew, photos from as far back as 2001. Photos that mainstream media allegedly has, but won't publish.
You've got to take them in the totality. The fact that Meghan Markle lied about the fact that she had no idea who Prince Andrew was and spent an entire event claiming that she didn't know who he was. The fact that she lied about not knowing anything about the royal.
Why? Because if those photos exist, they don't just show Meghan with Andrew. They potentially connect her to one of the biggest scandals in royal history. They make her relationship with Harry look like something much more calculated than a love story. And Joe Rogan is asking why those photos, if they exist, aren't being investigated. Why nobody's demanding answers. Why Meghan gets a pass when anyone else would face relentless scrutiny. That's the power of Joe's platform. He's not just repeating rumors, he's asking the questions that mainstream media won't touch, and his audience is listening. And here's the kicker. Meghan can't fight back. Not against Joe. She can sue tabloids. She can threaten royal correspondence. She can use palace lawyers to silence British media. But she can't do anything to Joe Rogan. He operates in America. He has Spotify money. He has the biggest audience in podcasting. Any attempt to silence him would backfire spectacularly. It would prove his point about powerful people hiding the truth. So what's her move? Stay silent and hope it blows over. But staying silent while Joe hammers the yacht girl narrative to his massive audience means millions of people hear only one side, the side that makes Meghan look like she's hiding something. Meanwhile, let's not forget what's been happening in Meghan's world just as this scandal resurfaces. Her Netflix show, With Love Meghan, launched to mixed reactions.
Meghan Markle's podcast has ended its 8-episode run, and there are no plans to release a second season at this point. What a surprise.
Her lifestyle brand, as ever, is facing questions about its future. And then there's the Kardashian drama. Remember Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party back in November? Meghan and Harry were there, rubbing shoulders with the biggest names in Hollywood. Photos were posted, then mysteriously deleted. Insiders claimed Harry asked for them to be removed because he didn't want to annoy the royal family while trying to reconcile. But here's the thing. If Harry's so concerned about reconciling with the royals, why is Meghan still pushing her Hollywood comeback? Why is she still launching new business ventures, still positioning herself as a lifestyle guru, still trying to build this empire that seems to rely on her royal-adjacent status? It's a contradiction, and it's one that Joe Rogan's audience is noticing. And let's talk about Harry, because if these yacht rumors gain traction, if the Andrew connection becomes widely accepted as true, Harry looks like the biggest fool in modern royal history.
But what people don't know is the efforts that I've gone to resolve this privately, both with my brother and with my father, constantly for the last 6 years, but especially the last 2. I think my mother would realize the missed opportunity with Meghan being part of the institution, part of the monarchy. And I think she is looking forward to the time when William and I see eye to eye and are joined at the hip again.
Imagine finding out your wife knew your disgraced uncle through Epstein circles before she met you. Imagine learning she was working elite yacht parties while you thought she was just a struggling actress. Imagine discovering your fairy tale romance was actually strategic networking at the highest level. That's the reality Joe Rogan is painting for his 200 million listeners. And Harry can't defend against it without proof. He can't provide evidence Meghan didn't know Andrew before him. He can't explain away the Marcus Anderson connections. He's stuck in the middle of a narrative that makes him look either naive or complicit, and neither option is good for him. Now, let's zoom out for a second. Because this isn't just about Meghan and Harry. It's about the entire system that allows people like Meghan to reinvent themselves, to bury their pasts, to control their narratives, until someone like Joe Rogan comes along and starts asking the questions nobody else will. It's about the power of platforms that can't be controlled, that don't play by the old rules of media and PR. It's about what happens when the carefully constructed image of a celebrity, or in this case, a former royal, starts to crack under the weight of questions they can't answer. And here's what we know for sure. Meghan's team is panicking.
Nothing.
She's nothing. And without her, Harry's life in America is nothing.
Yes, exactly.
He has a reputation to fall back
So they
on.
have a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, they need...
Insiders say they're furious but helpless. They can't respond without giving the story more oxygen. They can't ignore it because Joe's reach is too massive. They're stuck. And Joe knows it. That's why he keeps bringing it up, keeps asking questions, keeps suggesting there's truth to the yacht girl allegations that nobody in power wants investigated. He's not just reporting on a scandal. He's exposing the mechanisms that keep scandals hidden. And that's what makes this so dangerous for Meghan. Because once Joe Rogan starts asking questions about your past to his massive audience, once he connects dots mainstream media won't touch, once he exposes connections you've spent years hiding, there's no way to put that genie back in the bottle. The question isn't whether Meghan was a yacht girl who knew Andrew through elite circles. The question is whether she can survive Joe Rogan telling 200 million people she was. And based on how her team's reacting, based on the panic and the silence and the inability to respond, I'd say Meghan knows the answer. She knows Joe just exposed the one truth that destroys everything she's built, the yacht girl who landed a prince. That's Meghan's real story, and Joe Rogan just told it to the world. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Because while Meghan's team is scrambling to contain the damage, Harry's own position is becoming increasingly untenable.
Leave the children, you see. And in America, the rules about children, they're always with the mother, nearly always.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's not going to happen. So do you remember everyone when they got married, a lot of members actually of the royal family even said it won't last 5 years, but it has.
It has.
Yeah.
It's lasted 7.
Yeah.
Through a lot of crises, through a lot of
huge pressure.
Sources suggest he's already struggling with the yacht rumors, already questioning what's true about Meghan's past, already wondering if William and Charles were right to be suspicious all along. And if Joe keeps pushing this narrative, keeps asking these questions, keeps exposing these connections, Harry's entire relationship gets reframed, not as a love story, but as a calculation, as ambition, as a woman who worked yacht parties landing the ultimate prize. That's not just a scandal for Meghan. That's a scandal for the entire royal family. Because if Harry was manipulated, if he was played, if his fairy tale romance was actually a strategic move by a woman with connections to his disgraced uncle, then the monarchy itself looks like it was infiltrated. And that's a story that goes way beyond Meghan Markle. Now, let's talk about the Soho House connection, because this is where things get even murkier. Soho House isn't just a club. It's a networking machine for ambitious people who want access to wealth and power. The entire business model is creating private spaces where deals happen, where connections form away from public eyes. And Marcus Anderson is the man who facilitates those connections. He's the one who decides who gets access, who makes the strategic introductions. So when Joe Rogan starts asking what kind of networking Meghan was doing at Soho House, when he questions what happened in those exclusive private spaces, Soho House can't respond without admitting their entire business model. They can't say, no, we don't facilitate those connections, because facilitating connections is literally what they do. They can't investigate Anderson because he's been successfully connecting members for decades. They're trapped in the same way Meghan is trapped. Silence makes them look guilty, but defending themselves exposes the very thing they're trying to hide. And that's the genius of what Joe's doing. He's not just exposing Meghan.
I think that, as we've spoken about, this show has completely underperformed. It did not really appear on the Spotify charts. This was, of course, the podcast that she made with Lemonada Media. It's still unclear, actually, about what money has come from this podcast. So originally, when she signed up with Spotify, there was money up front. That deal went south. She signed up with Lemonada.
He's exposing the entire system that allows people like Meghan to operate in the shadows, to reinvent themselves, to control their narratives. He's asking the questions that mainstream media won't touch because they're too afraid of lawsuits, too afraid of losing access, too afraid of the powerful people who benefit from keeping these secrets buried. But Joe doesn't care about any of that. He's got the platform, he's got the audience, and he's got the immunity from consequences that comes with being the biggest podcaster alive. So he keeps asking, he keeps digging, he keeps connecting the dots. And Meghan? She's watching her carefully constructed image crumble in real time. But here's the thing about Joe Rogan. He's not just asking questions. He's framing them in a way that makes his audience draw their own conclusions. And people who convince themselves are far more certain than people who are told what to think. So when Joe says, here are all these connections and circumstances that need explanation, his audience starts filling in the blanks. They start seeing Meghan's past in a new light. They start wondering why she won't address any of this directly. They start asking why a woman who claims to be all about empowerment and transparency is so silent when it comes to her own history. And that's the real damage. Because once people start questioning the foundation of your story, once they start seeing the cracks in the narrative you've spent years building, it doesn't matter how many Netflix deals you have or how many lifestyle products you launch, the doubt is there. And doubt is the one thing Meghan Markle cannot afford. So where does this go from here?
I don't think that Meghan realizes that she does these things and the reaction is she's a laughingstock. I mean, she just has no clue.
Well, Joe Rogan isn't stopping. He's got the audience, he's got the platform, and he's got the immunity from consequences that comes with being untouchable. Meghan's team can't silence him, can't threaten him, can't control the narrative when he's reaching 200 million people. They're helpless. The Yacht Girl allegations are now mainstream discussion thanks to Joe. The Andrew connection is being questioned openly. The Marcus Anderson networking angle is getting scrutinized. And Meghan? She's watching her carefully constructed image crumble before her eyes. Because once Joe Rogan starts asking questions about your past to his massive audience, once he connects dots mainstream media won't touch, once he exposes connections you've spent years hiding, there's no way to put that genie back in the bottle. And here's the final piece of the puzzle, the one that might just break this story wide open. Because while Meghan's team is scrambling, while Harry's reportedly questioning everything, while the mainstream media is still tiptoeing around the edges of this scandal, Joe Rogan is doing something even more dangerous. He's not just talking about the past, he's suggesting that Meghan's entire post-royal reinvention might be built on a lie. that the woman who positions herself as an empowerment icon, as a self-made businesswoman, as someone who walked away from the monarchy to build her own empire, might actually be someone who spent years working elite circles most people can't even access. Someone who knew exactly what she was doing when she met Harry. Someone who saw him not as a love interest, but as the ultimate prize in a game she'd been playing for a long, long time. And if that's true, if even a fraction of what Joe's suggesting is true, then Meghan Markle isn't just facing a scandal. She's facing the complete collapse of everything she's built.
There was this story that Meghan, had her people approach someone about a divorce book. But I mean, imagine if Meghan left Harry, it would destroy her reputation. She would be eviscerated publicly because she's already slipped into this kind of category on social media, the way that pop culture commentators talk about her. They lump her in with Amber Heard, they lump her in with, these other famous women who are perceived as being narcissistic or, being controlled.
Because you can survive a rumor, you can survive a tabloid story, you can even survive a royal feud, but you cannot survive the world finding out that the person you've presented yourself to be is a fiction, that the empowerment icon is a performance, that the love story was a transaction. That's the kind of revelation that doesn't just damage a reputation, it destroys it. And Joe Rogan, he's the one holding the match. So what do you think? Is Joe Rogan onto something real here? Or is this just another storm Meghan Markle will weather with her usual mix of silence and legal threats? Because, let's be honest, we've seen her survive scandals before. But this one feels different. This isn't about palace feuds or tabloid drama. This is about the very foundation of who she claims to be. And when the biggest podcaster in the world starts asking these kinds of questions, the rules change, the stakes get higher, the cracks in the narrative start to show. So drop a comment below. Do you buy the Yacht Girl rumors, or is this just Joe Rogan stirring the pot? And if there are photos out there connecting Meghan to Prince Andrew's circle, why haven't we seen them? Who's protecting her? And what are they so afraid of? And maybe the biggest question of all, if Harry starts believing even a fraction of what Joe's suggesting, what happens to the Sussex brand then? Because one thing's for sure, this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. Hit like if you're following this as closely as we are, subscribe for the next chapter, and let us know. When the dust settles, who do you think comes out on top? Meghan's carefully crafted image, or Joe Rogan's relentless pursuit of the truth? Because right now, it's anyone's game.